Welcome to day two of the solo dev workshop, or hey, let's call it the how to make a game solo, maybe how and why you should make a game solo in 2026. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my very, very best. I don't want to be the YouTuber who BS's and just talks and talks and talks and talks and doesn't actually show you guys some tricks and tips and methods on how to make a game solo and to do it efficiently. And so today we're going to open up Unity. Excuse me. We're going to open up Unity. I'm going to show you really quick how we're going to turn this ugly scene here, this very, very ugly scene here, into something glorious. Okay, we're going to do it together. And also there's going to be plenty of tips and tricks in the presentation as well that we're going to quickly go through, okay? So if you want to make games solo in 2026, if that's your goal, if that's what you want to do, and you don't really want to work with a team, you want to just be you, and you want to be intimate and make something beautiful and precious like we talked about yesterday. And by the way, the webinar for yesterday is on my YouTube channel. And maybe I'll put the link in the description after I finish this here. But you can watch day one as well. So let's go ahead and get started. How's it going, guys? Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let me see if I can get this chat up and running here. There we go. Good, good, good. Hello. And guys, let me know. I don't want to be that guy, but in these you say you weren't really solo and you had a partner or outsource some stuff. Well, I don't know what you're talking about. So we'll talk about this. I've done all of it. I've done full solo development. I've done a tiny team, and then I've done a big project with like 20 people. So I've done all three. I've sort of climbed that ladder. So hey, really quick, I wanted to say a huge, huge thank you. I mean, being completely sincere here. Thank you so much. Martin, RZV, Joshua, Eric, Harbor. It was Steven or Stefan or Sefan, Kenny, Aaron, David, Joshua, Tado, Daniel, Manuel, Eric, Damien, and I've already mentioned the rest of these fellas here. I wanted to say a huge, huge thank you for joining FullTime GameDev. It means the world to me that you would join FullTime GameDev. And by the way, guys, if you want to join FullTime GameDev, which if you're not aware, FullTime GameDev is my massive program, and it's currently on sale for Black Friday. There's 5 days left, 19 hours to enroll and get 50% off this massive program. And it's going to teach you how to hit the Steam front page, how to get funded on Kickstarter, how to pitch and sell your game to publishers, how to actually make a game in Unity, Godot, or Unreal. You can take your pick. You don't have to learn all three. You could just learn one. How to code, right? But also, you're going to get these free courses here, 2D Art Pro and 3D Art Pro, and YouTube Game Dev, which teaches how to do YouTube, and also Stream My Game, which teaches how to reach out to streamers and let them play their games. Now, I've not done any of this stuff. It's all just theory. Wrong. I'm just kidding. I've done all of this stuff. So everything that I teach, I've done. That's what makes these courses, I think, so popular. I have 4,500 students. And by the way, if you're a student, let me know in the chat. I pride myself on not only doing all this stuff, whether it's securing funding on Kickstarter. I've done that multiple times, 6 figures, in fact, 6 figures in funding from publishers. I've done that 3 different times. Not every single one was 6 figures, but I've done well above it was like well above like $300,000 in funding from publishers. But I've also hit the Steam front page. I've also gotten press coverage and reached out to various press outlets and had them cover my games. I've reached out to Jacksepticeye, got him to play my games. Game Grumps, Matt Pat. But more than that, I've got real students who actually went full-time as well. And this, you can reach out to these folks here. Like, they actually went full-time, which is, honestly, it's mind-blowing to me. Because when I made this course, I was like, I don't know if people can do it. Yeah, because maybe my path is completely different. Maybe my path is unique. But folks went full-time, which was just so cool. Is it easy? No. Is it guaranteed? No. but it is 50% off. And this is my biggest sale event of the year. This will end. And these seats will sell out. I think there's something like 40 seats or maybe 30 seats left. So this right here, this timer, I need to update that. That's wrong. There's like 30 seats left. So please check it out below. See if it's something you're interested in. And let's go ahead, guys, and jump into the workshop. Are you ready? Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We got so many things to talk about today. Okay. Man, I kind of want to just fly through. The presentation and jump into Unity. But we're not going to do that. There's so much, I guess, theory we need to discuss, and then we're going to jump into the practical, okay? So really quickly here, I mentioned this at the beginning of the podcast. What we're going to do here is we're going to talk about not only how to make games alone, but we're going to show you how it's done. How to turn super simple, cheap, inexpensive assets, a small scene, and make it look, well, not realistic. We'll talk about what we want it to make it look like, okay? So we're going to jump into Unity in a sec, but really quickly here, no promises guaranteed. I always like to start any sort of workshop with this. Guys, it's up to you. I can't promise anything. I have no freaking clue what you're going to do with your time and how hard you're going to work. I can't promise anything, and honestly, I can't even promise that I'm 100% correct here. I know a lot of game devs who refuse to give advice because it's so variable and it's constantly changing. The technology's changing, and honestly, the journey is different for everybody. But I'm going to give you what I've learned, okay? All right, really quick, why listen to Thomas? Published 3 separate times. I have all very positive scores on Steam for Neversong, Pinstripe. Twisted Tower is not released yet. It's published by 3D Realms. However, the demo has over 1,000 reviews and is currently at very positive. That makes me very happy. So I'm on my 3rd commercial release. I'm praying and hoping to God that we get very positive scores for that as well. Been featured by plenty of press, but these are the 2 I'm really proud of. Time and apparently Forbes. I totally forgot. Did Forbes? Can someone look that up? I think I did. Yeah, I did. I did. And then also Washington Post and stuff, and PC Gamer, and yeah. Anyway, I've also been funded, I mentioned this earlier, multiple times on Kickstarter. And the reason I bring all this up is because there's a ton of different ways to get funded and go full-time. And I talk a lot about funding, and we'll talk about that towards the end of this workshop as well. Okay, yesterday we talked about what? Who remembers what we talked about yesterday? We talked about, as it pertains to solo development, we talked about an oil rig. And again, if you missed that workshop, feel free to check it out on my channel. Look, now that we've talked about we're looking for the oil bed, I guess is what we would call it, or the oil field. And that's related specifically to solo game development. I don't want you to build a giant oil rig, aka a big game that takes 10 months of your life or 12 months of your life. I don't want you to build that on top of, well, just dry desert or an empty ocean, right? And just drill in the sand. I want you to dig on top of the oil. I want you to build the rig on top of the oil. And so yesterday we talked all about finding the right ideas, specifically the right ideas for solo development, ideas for teams and big budget projects and AA and AAA. That's very, very different than a solo project, a small project. And my belly is rumbling. And if you hear it, I'm sorry. So let's talk, now that we know how to find good ideas, again, no guarantees, but now that we think we know we have a good idea, let's talk about the actual production side. The actual production side of making a solo game. Well, Thomas, you just use software and make a game, right? You just use Unity or Unreal or Godot and you make the game. No. I guess. But I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do in 2026 for my 4th commercial release. If I go solo, which I'm pretty sure I will, here's what I'm going to do. All right. Really quick, for those of you who don't know, we're going to quickly go over the dev tools, okay? Let me know in the comments, which engine do you use and why? So this is going to be really great because it's going to help you all. And by the way, I want to try and see if I could copy over the chat box onto my, there we go. Yay, so now you guys can actually see each other talk in the webinar. You should be able to. There we go. Does the course cover how to build an oil rig? No. No, I'd be selling that for 20 grand. Um, really quickly, guys, let each other know in the chat which engine you use and why. I'm going to briefly go over them. Unity, I'm going to shotgun these out, okay? And I'm going to say a lot of things that you guys are probably going to disagree with because there's nothing more cult-like than software engines or game engines. So I'm just going to rattle off my opinions. Let's go. Unity, the games tend to look more unique. They don't look great or better. They just look different. They don't look all homogenous and the same. We'll talk about Unreal in a second. Lower fidelity is kind of the goal with Unity. And this is just true out of the box. You can make it look incredible. You can make it look AAA, maybe. But just the way the engine's built, something about it outputs lower fidelity looking games. And that's totally fine. The lighting sucks big time. The fall off of the lighting is really bad. And even when you use something like, I don't know, URP, which isn't like the best, HDRP is considered the best, but even the URP, something about the lighting feels harsh and washed out. It's great for multi-platform. You can export to pretty much any platform you want. The company, Unity, does or did really dumb things in the past. And so there's always this feeling of spinning the chamber with Unity. You never really know if they're going to charge some wild royalty fee for their software. You don't really know. Unity is bloated, let's be honest. Tons of junk in Unity. It's a great engine for both 2D and 3D. The documentation rocks. The C#, and it's C#, and I love C#. C#, apparently, according to AI, C# is a higher level than, let's say, C++. That's what AI told me. I don't even know if I believe that. What do you guys think? Okay. Godot. This is sort of my by the way, I recommend Unity, and I'm not really ashamed to say it. I recommend Unity. I think it's great. I think it's the best tool for indies, because if you want to do 2D or 3D, and a lot of indies, they want to do both. And so might as well just learn Unity. Godot is great. It's super clean. It's very lightweight. It opens up like that fast. It's open source. It's free. Is it multi-platform? Kind of. Like it's still they're still like developing and partnering with various consoles to try and get the ports working properly. I don't know the specifics of it. I just know that it's not fully there yet. And you can make it happen. You can port to other platforms, but it's not like Unity. Unity is pretty straightforward, or as straightforward as it can be. Multi-platform, yeah, mentioned that. 3D, it's not great. It's getting there. Godot is great for 2D. It's great for 2D. GD script is the language. It's basically like Python, but it does support C#. Okay, moving forward, and then we're gonna talk about visuals, which is so important, and then we're gonna jump into Unity. I'm gonna show you how to implement what I've learned specifically about creating unique, breathtaking visuals, cheap, quick, as a solo. Finally, Unreal. It's geared towards higher fidelity. You don't have to make it realistic or higher fidelity. It's just kind of geared towards that. Realism is kind of a hallmark of Unreal. Really like great lighting and Lumen is awesome. And what's that tool called? It just totally slipped my mind. Oh no, what's it called? I forgot. The draw distance, where you can have like thousands of objects drawn on the screen. Anyway, great community, trustworthy, great documentation. Let me know in the chat, and we'll pretend that I came up with the right answer. Nanite, that's right. Thank you. Beautiful graphics, but this comes at a cost. It really does. Guys, if it's like, wow, my game looks amazing in Unreal. Look what I can do. Just be careful, because it might be very heavy on lower or mid-range machines and Nintendo Switch. I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying Unreal out of the box kind of does that. This is why you see a ton of hyper-realistic games come out. from Unreal developers. Whether you like it or not, I'm just going to say it. A lot of the games have a same vibe. They're kind of samey. They all kind of look the same. You don't have to, obviously. I think Stray did a great job not looking samey. C++ is the language, but most of the devs that I know use Blueprints, which is just a visual coding. So you don't have to code in C++. All right. Really quick, I want to talk about code as a solo developer. This is specific to 2026. It's kind of weird that I'm only going to focus on Claude. I felt weird writing this. I was like, why am I putting Claude as this one big section in this webinar or this workshop? And the reason is because I think that Claude is that much of a game changer. Now, obviously, we can call it Copilot. We can call it Grok. We can call it ChatGPT. I think Claude is the best. Claude is the best AI coder. And I'm just going to say it's the future. It really is the future. Claude is an incredible, incredible tool. Copilot is an incredible tool inside of Visual Studio. You can basically have another full-time developer with you at this point. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I don't know the ethics of Claude, nor will I try to explain the ethics or make a moral argument here. I'll leave that to you guys in the chat. But I just know that my mind has exploded with how effective Claude is. So when you're using Visual Studio, you can open up Claude. Okay, so let me show you really quickly how this is done. I'm going to open up one of my scripts here. Give me just a sec, guys. So I'm going to open up one of my scripts here in my own project. And let's see here. If I open up, let's see here. My character controller. Let's just open him up. I'm going to let Visual Studio open here. Now, again, I'm not saying this is the right thing. I'm not saying it's moral. I'm not saying it's ethical. I'm saying it's just happening and there's nothing we can do about it. And we're barreling down the cliff. And it's so freaking effective. And I cannot argue against it from a production standpoint. It's absolutely wild. So what I would do, let's say if I was working on a future project, and let's say that I came to the decision that I was fully okay with Claude and using Claude. What you have is you have Copilot over here, and then you have your traditional text editing here. And I can do all sorts of stuff with Claude. And most of you know this about Claude, but if you don't, this is for you. But here are all our different models, right? I'm going to use Claude Sonnet 4.5. And I'm just going to say, explain what this script is doing. Oftentimes, I don't know what my own scripts do. Okay, so like after 4 or 5 years of making a game, what I mean is, even if I wrote the scripts, and by the way, all of our scripts, it's me, it's AJ, it's Jason, it's Gordon, all these different developers coding, okay? Instead of searching, we had a whole documentation online, a private documentation for the team. Instead of searching that now, just use Claude. And this is the one thing where I can go, this is the one thing where I can say, absolutely, this is moral and wonderful, which is having Claude be your research assistant. And honestly, I use this all the time. Having Claude be your research assistant and be your documentation assistant, this is no small thing. This is massive. How many of you know the feeling of trying to figure out, like you're in your project and you're thinking, wait, where was the code that handles the interaction when I press E or when I click? Where's that code? I can't remember where it is. You just say, Claude, where is it? And it finds it, right? So this just gave me a whole overview of what it does. I could say, what are some key optimizations I can make to the script? And it'll tell me all of these crazy optimizations I can do. And it's going to be depressing seeing this. Now, you obviously got to be careful with Claude because oftentimes Claude will try to sound confident and come up with random crap. And you can also convince Claude that it's wrong. So you got to be very, very careful. You got to be careful. In a way, there's definitely a power dynamic, which is, let's say you had an intern that was working for you and they were a freshman in college, barely knew any code, and you every sentence you send them and every sentence you tell them as their boss, they're going to be convinced of what you're saying because you're their boss. The same is kind of true with Claude. So you got to be kind of careful. You got to be kind of careful. So plenty of things that we can do. Now, one of the things I love about Copilot, and then I'll move on to visual tricks and tips that are going to help you so much as a solo developer. One of the things I love about Claude, and this what I'm about to tell you is the greatest asset of using Copilot. Editor tools, okay? I could say, please write me an editor tool that will find all objects in my scene, objects in my project that are not using the standard URP shader. And in like maybe 40 seconds, the editor tool will be written, and then it will show up in my tools panel, and then it will do the work. It'll find all of those scripts, all of those shaders in the project. I have a bunch of editor tools. Okay, these I'm really, really grateful for. Tons of editor tools here that will quickly do stuff for me that in 2-3 years ago I would have had a team member do on a 6-hour day, or like in 6 hours, right? Generating random GUIDs for game objects, solving GUID duplication issues, disabling all mesh renderer shadows, disabling all children colliders, disabling and enabling marked objects, collecting shader variants, right? There's just a ton of tools. Texture crunch compressor. This editor tool goes through the entire project and sets all textures to a certain resolution. So editor tools are wild. A wild and helpful way as a solo developer to get your project done. Okay, now here's the thing. I know that code is wonderful and it feels amazing. It feels great to write code, and I know how to write. I know C#. I've been using C#, I guess, for 10 years. So it is kind of a sad thing. It's a sad thing to have code written for you. I'm not telling you the moral argument. I'm just telling you what's happening. Okay, so should you learn to code? That's the next question. Okay, and then we'll move on to creating breathtaking visuals as a solo developer. Should you learn to code? I wrote an equation for you that I really think, I think this equation holds up. Okay, here's the equation, or in this case, it's like a function in Unity. Let's say Claude is a level 5. It's a level 5 coder. Let's say your level of coding is 2. Well, that means you're going to get a value of 10. Holy crap. You went from 5 to 10. And by the way, I'm not just bullshitting. This is true. This is true for me. I think I'm a pretty good coder. I'm more than a 2. I'm probably like a 6 out of 10. Let's say Claude is a 5. 5 times 6 is 30. It's a multiplier. It's a multiplier. It's not even, I don't think it's an adder. I think it's a multiplier. But let's talk about, well, what if you don't know how to code at all? I genuinely believe you're basically going to get a value of 0. Claude's still a level 5, right? You're a level 0. You're done. Let's say you're a level 1. Okay? Claude basically is at its default of 5. So what you want to do, and by the way, I have seen this. I've seen this with friends, okay? Friends who are software developers who are at the top of their game. They're such what do you call them? Full stack developers. They're so good at writing code. They've been doing it for 20 years. Claude comes in, right? Copilot comes in, and they're like a level 50 all of a sudden. They were a 10 and now they're a level 50. Whereas junior devs who don't know that much about code, don't really know how to code, it's not really that effective for them. So in a way, there's some kind of wealth disparity. It's something like that, a wealth of knowledge where it's like the more you know how to code, the better Claude is. So I actually think Claude and Copilot are a great argument to learn to code. Because if you learn to code, you're that much more effective. You're exponentially more effective, especially as a solo game dev. Does that make sense? Definitely a multiplier, though sometimes it multiplies in the wrong direction. It does, but I think, seriously, I think with practice, you'll find that you slowly stop multiplying in the wrong direction. Communicating with Claude and Copilot is, it's a skill in and of its own. Just like Google searching, guys, remember when you had to, do you remember Google? When you had to Google search and you had to go to something, there's like this really old website. It was called Stack Overflow. If you had to Google search 2-3 years ago, it did require a certain skill of figuring out how to Google to find the right answers. And I think the same is true with Copilot. So I've seen too many level 10 coders become level 1 coders because they start using AI. I'm sorry, then they're just doing it wrong. They're just doing it wrong. You got to check the code, guys. You've got to double, triple check the code that's being output. And you got to know how to write the right prompts. But yeah, it's true. I mean, I think a lot of developers will get worse. But I think it's the future. I do. And I think it's going to help solo devs. Okay. I think it's going to help solo devs a lot. And it's definitely a contentious topic. And again, I don't have the moral answers. I can just tell you the production answers. All right. Let's move on, guys, and then we'll jump into Unity here. I want to talk really quickly about how we use visuals as a solo developer. And I've had this conversation with team members in the past, discussing why, Thomas, why do you keep making your games lower fidelity? Why don't you go more realistic? Why don't we add a higher poly count? What are we doing? And the truth is that as a solo developer, or even as a small team, it's actually a good idea to, in a way, kind of make your game look crappy on purpose. Not really. Let me explain. Before I explain, I want to tell you the best tools for game art as a solo dev, just so we're all on the same page here, okay? 2D, Photoshop or GIMP. GIMP is free, Photoshop is not. Photoshop will pillage your bank account. However, I've been paying Adobe for 10 years. 3D modeling, Blender and ZBrush. I'm not going to recommend anything else, honestly. Just Blender, ZBrush, and obviously like Substance Painter, which is a texturing tool after use Blender. ZBrush is used for a lot of organic models. Blender, obviously you can do organic models in Blender, but Blender is great for hard surface modeling, for props, right? Props for your scene and set dressing, but also like architectural modular pieces as well. Now, this is something that I think I didn't know about 4 years ago when I got into 3D. And honestly, a lot of YouTube game devs don't really talk about it. But 3D modeling is totally different than 3D level design. Okay, 3D level design is a multifaceted art form. You're going to start with a base layer, like a base blockout. Let me show you. Okay, let me see if I can open it up here. You're going to start with like a base layer, a base blockout. And then inside of that, once you get that blockout done, then you set dress. Okay, then you set dress. So let me open that up here. Yeah, good, great. Keep sharing all the other tools you guys like. Let each other know. Blender's incredible. Blender is some kind of weird anomaly, honestly. I don't know how they do it. Okay, so like with my scene here, this is one of the levels in Twisted Tower. This is not all built in Blender as one piece. That would be insane. Instead, we have a block out here. Okay. And in fact, I can walk around in this block out if you guys want. It might be dark. Come on, Unity. So I can walk around in here. It's just occlusion culling right now. That's the problem. Right? But then there's also all the modular pieces that are created in Blender that are dressed onto the mesh. Now there's other pieces here like this right here that are actually Pro Builder shapes, but they're more like you could have done them in Blender as well. But all of these are like modular pieces. Felipe did an incredible job creating these. So there's a big difference between the, let's say, the gray boxing or the block out, which is done with Pro Builder, versus 3D modeling the modular pieces in Blender. And characters and organic stuff like trees and rocks, that's great with ZBrush. Okay, now I'm going to be shifting from Pro Builder to Real-Time CSG for my next project. Real-Time CSG is different, very different than Pro Builder. Real-Time CSG uses something called booleans. And if you've ever used Illustrator or Blender, you know what this is, which is taking shapes and using them to cut out other shapes. So let's say you had a cube and then you could stick a cube inside of that cube and bull it out. And now you'd have a hallway through the cube. That's different than Pro Builder. Pro Builder is you're messing with loops and cuts and cutting faces and merging vertices. So I'm going to use Real-Time CSG because it's non-destructive. Okay, now let's get into the tricks. And these tricks I'm going to show you inside of Unity. Okay, guys. So I'm going to briefly go over them, and then we're going to open up Unity. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. Okay, or how I would do it. As a solo, it's very different than working with a team, because there are 3 things I think a solo developer should do with their game visuals. And by the way, this is what Ken Levine told me. The art of a game, also American McGee told me this as well. Art is what's most expensive in a game. So that's what's going to kill you as a solo developer. And that's my experience as well. So if you're a solo, I need you to create art that's unique, that's cohesive, and inexpensive. Notice how I didn't say gorgeous. I didn't say realistic. I didn't say high fidelity. I said it's unique. It's different. It's special. It's precious. We used that word yesterday. It's precious. But it's cohesive, meaning we're going to use a lot of assets as a solo. Not everybody does, but I will. And believe me, I know what it's like to do everything from scratch. I did that with Pinstripe, my first game. But I'm going to use assets. But you want them to be cohesive. Otherwise, guys, it looks like just another asset flip game. Another crappy asset flip game where it's just put together and it looks like it's put together in a couple months and it looks like slop. And number 3, this is key. As a solo, you want to create visuals that are inexpensive. Meaning, if time is money, they take very little time. And I'm going to show you how to do that, okay? We're going to open up Unity in a second. So what do you notice about all these games that I'm about to show you here? They're unique. It's not like gorgeous. It's not the greatest looking thing ever. I mean, but it does. Undertale does look really good, but it also doesn't, if you know what I mean. Like, it kind of looks like crap. Like, if you ask somebody who didn't like these kind of games, like if you asked your mom and you said, "Mom, what do you think about this game's graphics?" She'd be like, "That's horrible." It's special though. It's got this very beautiful, it's beautiful in its own little way. It's cohesive, meaning you've got the pixel font, you've got the pixelated square box, you've got the pixel art. All the pixels are the same size, at least it looks like they are. And inexpensive, done quickly. At least that's the hope. That's the theory. There's my game. Not a ton of texture. This is Pinstripe. Not a ton of texture. There's no 3D models here. Granted, this took forever. If I did it again, the reason it took forever wasn't because I had to draw this stuff. It's because I had to redraw stuff because I didn't know what I was doing. But like actually making the art look like this, it shouldn't be expensive. It's got a cohesive look and it's unique. It's got a unique style. This game is great. Links in the description. You might think, wow, but that looks so high fidelity. No, look closely. What the developer might trick you, which is kind of the whole point. The developer might trick you into thinking it's high fidelity. When in reality, that's just bloom, sun shafts, shadows, lighting, depth of field. I don't see any texture here. I don't see any normal maps. I don't see any complicated use of specular or metallic. Pretty straightforward. Balatro. I think this game looks incredible. I've always thought Balatro had a really juicy look. But it's simple. I mean, clearly made by one dude. But it works, right? It's unique, cohesive, and inexpensive. And no, I don't think that's a toon shader, by the way. I don't think that's a toon shader. I think it just doesn't have specular. And by the way, one of the hallmarks of toon shading is that it doesn't have specular. Toon shading, I think it usually has a higher threshold, so it's softer. And rim lighting is a hallmark of toon shading as well. I could be wrong though. This could be toon shading. Yeah, Balatro. So, and then also this is Cultic here, but let's talk really quickly about how to achieve the unique look. And again, we're going to open up Unity in a second. I'm going to turn a really crappy scene into something beautiful. I hope. I haven't even tried this yet. I'm just jumping in. I want to do it and sort of shoot from the hip and see if I can do it. But how do you achieve something that's unique? A look that's unique. There's this really fun quote. Please, if somebody knows who said this quote, let me know. My dad told me about this quote. And it's from somebody who was talking about writing a book. And the author said, when you're writing, just put a unicorn in a Western. Just do it. Put the unicorn in a Western. And what he meant was get it over with. Put something crazy in your book so that you have the right to do other less crazy things. Because oftentimes as an artist and as an artist for a game, you're always sort of, for some reason, you've got this subconscious ceiling where you're never willing to go above and beyond. Like for some reason, it is so hard for me to accept in Twisted Tower that I want to make little mini enemies. I want my enemies to shrink down into tiny, like the size of a mouse in one of the scenes. And I'm like, but the game is called Twisted Tower. It's super weird. It's super strange. Just go ahead and do it. Just put it in there, call it a day. And then now I have the right to do other stuff. Or another example is I had mascots in Twisted Tower. And for 2 years, I kept their head size normal. So like you'd have a mascot that's like a teddy bear. And for some reason, I couldn't bring myself to just make the head big. Just make it big. And once I finally did it, it was such a relief. Because then I was like, oh, so I have more freedom than I thought. As a solo developer, you need to give yourself visual freedom. Put a unicorn in your game. Put a unicorn in your Western game. I think Jason Smith, my buddy who made Cultic, he did that. He said, you know what? Everything, all of the artwork, all of the characters are going to use voxel art. And I'm going to use this crunchy, thresholdy color filter. And he just went for it. And it created this unique style. Now, it might not be for everybody, but it is unique. And it stands out. It's especially important to do this. And the reason why it's important as a solo to be unique is because you're not going to be able to compete with AAA visually. You're not going to be able to compete with AA. You have to compete in your own way. You have to choose you have to play a different game than AAA. And the game is being unique. You do this with shaders, you do this with pixelation, you do this with post-processing. Don't even try to do a realistic game. I mean, I guess you can if you really, really want to try, but you need to know that you're competing with AAA and AA. Now, Unreal and Unity's trying to do this, I think. They have like these game packs or templates. When you use these templates where it's like a first-person shooter template, the problem with using these is you feel really smart when you use it. You're thinking, oh, wow, I just made a first-person shooter by clicking OK. But the problem is everybody else is doing it too. So if you want to look unique, try to avoid using the templates that everyone else is using that are shown to you on the default screen of Unreal and Unity. All right, moving on. How do you achieve something cohesive? And again, we're going through unique, cohesive, and inexpensive, the three things I think your visuals need as a solo dev. How do you achieve a cohesive look? Strong understanding of color theory. Danny, which by the way, Danny made Megabonk. Danny did a great job using this tealish blue and this almost hot orangish red because those are actually complementary colors. So he's using very strong color theory here to make the game feel, I don't know why, but it reminds me of a cupcake. It's like got this frosting look. It's the color theory. Consistent use of fonts, right? Using Photoshop filters to create pixelation, right? A consistent pixelated look. You could take textures. I'm going to show you how to do this. You could take textures from all over the world, all over Google, and put them inside of Photoshop, and apply the same filter, whether it's like brush strokes or a threshold effect or a posturization effect or a noise effect or a pixelation or any kind of effect you want, and apply it to every texture, apply proper color theory, and all of a sudden, boom, it's going to pop. And hopefully I'm going to show you that here in Unity. Fingers crossed that I can pull it off. Post-processing, subtle bloom. There's a little bit of bloom here. I'm not sure if it's very subtle, right? Material consistency. Do you guys see any normal maps here? I don't. It's all pretty flat. The consistency is very, very straightforward. The materials are very consistent. Lighting is a great way to achieve It's hard to explain. I'm going to show you how in a sec, but lighting is another way to achieve cohesive look with your visuals. Okay, finally, how do you achieve inexpensive? Okay, how do you achieve inexpensive? Remember, we're trying to achieve three things. Your visuals need to be unique, cohesive, and inexpensive. Otherwise, your project's going to get bloated and you're going to quit. This one's kind of weird. And I'm not saying everybody has to do this, but I've found it's just something I love to do. When I have a deadline coming and it's just me working on a project and I need a new area for my map, I lean into liminal space. I lean into the concept of liminal space. I say, you know what? Instead of filling this room full of furniture, or instead of filling this scene full of rocks and trees and barrels and grass and junk, I'm going to make a beautiful, clean, open field with one tree in the middle, and it's casting a long shadow. There it is, done. And maybe a little lootable barrel right next to it. That's leaning into liminal space. It's saying, you know what? Emptiness can actually be a very effective way to make something visually striking, as long as you're thinking about composition. And by the way, composition is much more valuable than realism, especially as a solo. And I'll talk about composition in a sec when we open up Unity. But putting various objects in your scene to create balance, as if you're a photographer or a director. It's so funny. Game devs think they need to act like the world is real. They're trying to be God. I want you instead to be a director. A director is going to work with their set designer and their director of photography and their lighting, and they're going to work together to create a shot. And it's very precise and fine-tuned. That's what you want to do as a solo dev. And you can get away with less because you actually understand composition. I also want you to use assets. I'm going to talk about all of this. We're going to jump inside of Unity. I'm going to show you how to use assets. Again, I want you to force yourself to use less. And also, by the way, I've learned this recently from Chad. I've mentioned Chad a lot. Shout out to Chad Ains at Saber, which is the parent company of my publisher 3D Realms. He's been helping me understand that interactivity is more valuable. I'm getting chills, sorry. Interactivity is more valuable than set dressing. So you're going to think, okay, I'm going to add 20 lights in this scene, and everything's going to cast a shadow. And I'm going to have 5 different colors of lights. And I'm going to have a chandelier here. And I'm going to have 5 leather couches here. And I'm going to have 5 paintings. It's going to be huge. We're not Stanley Kubrick. Okay? Only Stanley can do that. He loves wide angle shots, by the way. Instead, we're going to focus on interactivity. So yes, we're going to lean into liminal space. Less is more. We're going to lean into using composition. A really great, simple, but effective composition. But we're going to introduce interactivity. What do I mean? Well, you can imagine maybe a scene of a river, okay? Instead of putting a ton of rocks and a ton of trees everywhere, we're going to put 2 trees, but we're going to have a waterfall. And we're going to let the player walk into the waterfall, and it splashes, right? And then there's a fish jumping down the waterfall. It may not look better, but it feels better. The splashing sound, right? The ability to pick up a rock and throw it. The ability to catch the fish, I don't know, or shoot the fish. That interactivity is way more valuable than cluttering up the shot. We all have seen 3D AI art. We've seen asset flip games. We've seen how beautiful, these mega scan games are. Nobody wants that. We want interactivity. We want to feel like the world is interacting with the player. We want to feel like the player is influencing the world. We also want to lean into mood, okay? I'll show you how to do that here in a sec. We want to use lighting to our advantage to get away with less. And one of my favorites, fog. Use fog to get away with less. That make sense? So I want to show you guys how to make a scene that looks unique, that looks cohesive, and it's all inexpensive. It's done on the cheap. This looks horrible. Look at this shot. So we're going to open this up in Unity. By the way, I put this together in like 30, 40 minutes. It's all just free assets, and we're going to take a look. Okay, let's see if I could do that. Let's see if I can make this look amazing. And by the way, those of you just joining us, remember, if you want to take a small solo project, if you want to take a demo and you're interested in learning how to turn that demo into a full game and get wish lists, hit the Steam front page, stay motivated, pitch it to publishers, pitch it on Kickstarter, get funded. If you want to learn how to make beautiful 2D art, beautiful 3D art, make YouTube devlogs, build a social media presence. Basically, if you want to learn how to build an indie studio and you want to learn from an actual indie developer, and you also want to support the channel, check out the link below, and I'll also give you a shout out in tomorrow's live stream as a new student. It's 50% off for Black Friday, biggest sale ever. Okay, Thomas, let's go. I've been so excited. I've been wanting to do this all day. So I'm going to open up my project here. One sec. Forest test scene. And I put this together today, and we're going to have a good time. Okay, we're going to have a really good time making this scene here. So looks pretty bad. Okay, these are all assets that I found in 30 or 40 minutes. And by the way, this scene was inspired by a scene from one of my favorite games, and we're going to see if we can guess it, okay? The first thing I want to do before I do anything is I want to get my skybox. I kind of want to start with the low-hanging fruit, okay? So what I'm going to do, let me enter play mode to show you guys what it looks like. And by the way, I'm using the engine that I wrote, well, my team and I wrote for Twisted Tower. So this is what we've got. This is what happens with a lot of games, guys, that use assets. Because they don't have a fundamental understanding of textures and color and lighting and fog and mood and atmosphere, they don't know how to put the assets into a scene and make it look cohesive, unique, and all do it inexpensively. This is why oftentimes a lot of game developers are making hyper-realistic games. They're doing it because that's what they know. And so I kind of want to show you maybe what you don't know, which is how to make something stylized and unique, okay? All right. Good job, guys. We got Half-Life 2. Very good. Half-Life 2, the boat scene. So we're going to replicate that using assets. Is it going to look like Half-Life? Heck no. Is it going to look like an indie game? Yes. Is it going to look unique? Yes. All right. I'm going to start with the skybox. You guys ready to go? You ready to roll? This is what I really wanted to do today. The workshop has just turned into, well, a challenge. We're going to see if Thomas can do this. All right, first things first, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to open up Photoshop here, and we're going to start with our skybox. And I'm going to show you guys how to quickly use assets to create a beautiful skybox. So this is the skybox I've got. And the size, this is not the correct size, by the way. It's not like industry standard. I just chose a size. 4096 by 2048. Okay? Full disclosure here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a bunch of assets from Google. I'm going to grab a bunch of assets from vecteezy.com. I'm going to grab a bunch of assets from textures.com. Okay? Most of them are free. Some of them might not be. And some of them might not even be legal. But I'm just showing you really quickly here how to use assets, okay, and flip assets. All right, so I'm going to type in Stormy Skybox. Storm clouds. Let's do storm cloud or storm. There we go. I think that's all we need right there. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to download this. That's fine. And I'm going to bring that in, and this is actually going to be the part where not only are we going to make our skybox, but we're also going to make our color palette. Okay, so we're going to talk about color theory here in a second. But I'm going to take this skybox here. I'm just going to fade out the parts that I don't want. I'm going to fill this with the magic fill tool. It didn't work, did it? It's like it's supposed to be magical. I tend to go really, really big with my skyboxes, so I want to be careful here. All right, so let's actually do this. I'm going to take this stuff here and fill it in so that we don't see this. And this skybox, I promise you it's going to make so much of a difference. So this is why I call it low-hanging fruit. Skyboxes are a quick way to make your game look amazing. I'm going to save that. Now, I'm just going to save it and make sure the scale looks good, okay? So here it goes. I'm telling you, it's low-hanging fruit, man. And if you're wondering, like, let's say how Half-Life, the team at Valve did it, they didn't have an opportunity to use assets per se. They had to go out and take photos, right? They had to go out and take photos of things. Great. Let's fill that. Let's just do this here. And then I'm going to take this, duplicate it, go a little bit bigger, and just bring it up here. And look, we can kind of just scale it up. And you might be wondering, Thomas, but it's not looping properly. I'm going to show you how to loop it, okay? Or tile. It's not tiling properly. And then down here, we just want to use a yellow color. And we're going to talk about picking the right colors in just a sec here. for the entire scene. Color theory is going to let us get away with a lot of bad topology and a lot of bad assets, frankly. Okay. So already looks incredible, or at least 10 times better. You'll notice the lighting looks really, really bad. I was going to say a cuss word. It's really, really bad. And we've also got this weird sort of pinching here. I'm going to show you how to fix that as well. All right. So is the skybox detailed enough? Well, let's take a look. Yeah, it looks detailed enough for me. Yeah. Okay. Pretty good. Let's move forward here. And we're going to take this right here, this maybe the average color, maybe that one, and just do this. That way we get rid of that pinching at the top there. There we go. Pinching's gone. All right. And then let's make sure it loops properly or tiles properly. What I'm going to do is merge everything together here. I'm going to crop it. And then I'm going to transform, flip horizontal. That way, all I got to do is have this little edge over here, and it loops perfectly to this side. Save it. Now you're going to want to make sure, just so you know, you're going to want to make sure it's set to clamp as the wrap mode with point no filter, and you want to make sure you turn bitmaps off. So if you generate bitmaps, it gets this weird seam. All right, looks good. Let's go to our environment tab here, and I'm going to turn off, or I'm going to tone down the skybox lighting entirely for now. I'm going to turn it off entirely. And instead, I'm just going to turn on a directional. This is going to be crazy. When you add a directional light with shadows and you add long shadows, and this is related to what we were talking about with mood, using atmosphere and mood to your advantage as a solo dev. A lot of people will say, why do your games why are they always moody and foggy and they use long shadows? And I say, well, because it's a tiny team, if not completely solo. And this is a great cheap way to make really interesting art on the cheap. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure we turn on the shadows. There we go. I'm going to increase the length of my shadows. I'm going to go to my pipeline. Don't worry about this. This is because this is Twisted Tower. My max shadows are set to 60. I'm going to set it to 500. There we go. Okay. Good so far. And I'm going to make sure we go to our directional light here. And I'm going to set it to hard shadows. Just for now, so I can see what's going on with the resolution of the shadows. Resolution of the shadows is really bad. And I want to set the strength down like this. There we go. And then just make some longer shadows here. There we go. Yeah, the resolution is really bad. So let's double check and see what's going on. There it is. For some reason, it's really bad, and this is the one thing I cannot figure out why this is doing this. I might need to ask for y'all's help. It's probably because the distance is so big. There we go. We'll set it to 100. Good. Okay. All right, we got our shadows working for us, guys. Already looks like 5 times better, right? Okay, shadows are working for us. We're going to make sure the directional light is natural. Okay? So let's say it's 7:30 p.m., 8:30 p.m. You're going to get a little bit of a warmer light. Okay? Don't do this. Might even have a pink to it, right? Very subtle warm light. Okay? And in fact, if I wanted to, I could make the sky, I could use a hue saturation shift, colorize, and go pink. Subtle pink. Like this. Which I kind of want to do. It's kind of blown out. The reason it's blown out is because there's post-processing. I'm going to make... Wait, is there really, Thomas? The post-processing is gone. So why is it blown out? Let's take a look. Could be... I think we just need to use a darker color. Turn up our skybox just a little bit. Our skybox lighting. There we go. Just a tad. And that pink I don't really like, actually. So let's just do this. There we go. Okay. All right. Not perfect, but it's getting there. You'll notice our textures look like crap, right? Our coloring looks like crap. So in order to fix that, what I want to do is I want to go into my skybox. And this is where I want to kind of determine what my colors are. What are the colors going to be for this scene? Well, I kind of want it to have a brownish, orangish look for the sky, something like this. And then I want to use pops of color. This is where color theory comes in. If you have a low saturation background, and then you have a vibrant orange, like a burgundy, I'm sorry, a rusty red, like this, you can make your scene look really interesting. You may even be able to get away with like a vibrant yellow. Let's try that one. We'll use a dark brown, low saturated brown. That's kind of cool. I think I want to make this one like a low saturation green. There we go. And then this one we're going to go, let's see here. Got to think this through here. Yeah, there we go. So this is our color palette, guys. This is our color palette for this scene. So that's what I like to do when I'm working in a scene. When I have a pencil thin budget, and whether I'm solo, right? And right now I'm basically solo. I'm contracting out Felipe for some help with one additional level. And then I'm also contracting out Jason. I don't know if Jason Montgomery's in the chat. Jason Montgomery is doing the localization. So this is kind of our color palette. So now let's go ahead and just put this into the game. Well, I know that I like the skybox to be this color here. This is what it was. This is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to drop it down just a little bit there. There we go. And I'm going to make sure in Unity, there's not any weird coloring going on in the actual material, which there is. So I'm going to do this. There we go. There we go. So there's our skybox. It's a little monochromatic. I think I'm okay with that, but let's maybe crank it up a little bit here. Still monochromatic, which I think is, well, monochrome always hurts. It always hurts it, but I think that's monochrome as well anyway. How about this, guys? Here's what we'll do. We're going to fade up into a bluish color at the top. I just don't like monochrome skyboxes. I really don't. I never have. Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. Okay. Well, let's think also about, okay, well, what other colors do we have here? Well, we have this. What do we think the fog color should be? I think something like this right here. Okay. So that faded color there, that might be a really good fog color. So let's go to our lighting tab. Turn on fog. Okay. We don't want too much. We're going to do something like that for now. Okay, good. We kind of captured the hue of the skybox. I'm going to go a little bit darker. We could test and say, okay, what would it look like if it was maybe, yes, the warmer color works good too. There we go. All right, let's keep that. So far, so good. Let's enter play mode and take a look. We're getting there. Wouldn't you say, guys? We're getting there. And you know, it can be really overwhelming. You can look at a scene and go, oh, it looks so bad. What? There's too much to do. It's all so bad. Just follow the process. Follow the process. Okay. Trust the process. That light, that fog is a little too saturated, so I'm going to drop it down. There we go. Okay. Now, remember we had our color palette here? What's that for? Well, it's for the various textures. Okay, so let's open up our textures here. The first thing I would like to do with, and by the way, all of these textures I just grabbed from Google really quick. Here they are. And I like to have all of my textures as Photoshop files so that I can quickly open them up and tweak the colors. Now let me show you what I mean here. I'm gonna open up the grass here. I think the grass is gonna make the biggest impact. And by the way, I kind of want it to be more of a yellow grass. So I'm actually gonna grab that color right there. Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe more saturated, more yellow. There we go. Was that what I think that's what it was. So what I'm going to do here is put this here, and then I'm going to do a hue set. I'm not going to do a colorization. And by the way, if you want to make your game look really flat, colorize everything. Be my guest. And you can do that sometimes, but I've found that if you do this instead, it's a lot more effective because you get these nice little pops of color in here. And if you don't like those colors, you go, okay, well, I don't want that pinkish red. So I can go to my red channel here and adjust those to be, gray and make them darker. There we go. So now my grass is going to match that color. Look, see? Already looks pretty good. Okay, Thomas. And by the way, I'm kind of nervous about this because I haven't tried this. I swear, I've never done this scene. I didn't practice this before I went live here. Yes, my textures are all PSDs. And that's why Twisted Tower is something like a 400 gigabyte folder. I'm not joking either. You can ask Jason. It's giant. Okay, let's do this. We're not going to use that orange frequently. And by the way, I like to do this. I like to put the pop of color small to remind myself, hey, Thomas, don't do too much of the pop. All right, here we go. This is the color of our dirt. Again, I'm not going to colorize. I'm going to shift the hue until it matches. So it's a really low saturated sort of pinkish red. There we go. There, just like that. Drop down the saturation or the lightness. Don't be afraid of texture. By the way, we're going to add a filter to all of this stuff so that it's easy to... I'm really excited, so I might be merging sentences here. We're going to use a filter in just a sec to create this seamless look. And the reason you want the seamless look, it seems like more work, but the reason you want to create that seamless filtered look or like a stylized look as a solo is because you want to grab assets from all over the place, especially free ones. And you want them to work together. And oftentimes you'll be like, okay, well, there's an asset of a building that it's free and I don't want to spend $100. So I'm going to grab that asset, but the textures look completely different than my other textures. You use a pixelation filter or you use a oil paint filter or some kind of a posterization filter. And you apply that to all of your textures and everything is seamless. Let's save that and take a look. Yay. Okay, moving forward, we've got this stone texture. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do the same sort of coloring here. And I'm going to hue saturate. You can even see there's a watermark on it. That's hilarious. But that's why we're going to add filters to it. And you won't see you won't see the watermark. I'm not saying this is legal, by the way. Do things legally, okay? All right, that should do. There we go. Save that. Good, okay. And then finally the sand. And I'm going to adjust the lightness so that the brick is lighter and then the sand is darker. And I promise you we're going to change the tiling of this. So all of a sudden in like maybe 10 seconds, it's all going to look good. Just because we're going to adjust the tiling of all of the textures. And we're going to make them seamless as well. All right, here we go. By the way, those of you just joining us, remember you can check out FullTime GameDev below. Thomas, you've been really pushing this Black Friday sale. That's because it's Black Friday. It's a big sale. It's my biggest sale of the year. So be sure to check it out below if you're interested in not only learning, how to make a game in whether it's Unity, Godot, or Unreal, how to code. And by the way, you can pick any engine you want. You don't have to do all three. Just pick Unity. And you're also going to learn how to pitch to publishers, how to hit the Steam front page, how to get wish lists, how to build a social media presence. You also get my 2D and 3D art programs completely free. You're also going to learn how to do crowdfunding. And if you're curious, just know that I'm not just BSing here. These are all of these things I've done. And so I decided, hey, I'm going to put together a huge course that you can use all through 2026 as a resource. You don't have to do it all in 1 week. Just do it over a long year-long period, and you're going to learn a ton. You're going to learn a ton. Okay, so we've got this beautiful looking coloring here. I'm going to make this darker. So the sand is going to look wet and dark. There we go. The sides are going to brighten up, and then the stone is right there. So I think so far we're good. So far we're good. You're probably thinking, wow, this is really gray. That's kind of the point, because we're going to use pops of color to make it look not gray. Let's bump up all of our textures here to be bigger. So I'm going to do 5 by 5 for all of our textures in the tiling. Okay, so that one's a little big. Also, one of them is shiny. There we go. Let's go to our channel defaults. One of them has a high specular or ambient occlusion. What is this? Okay, there we go. There we go. All right. We're going to crank up the intensity of the and the warmth of the directional light in a second here. But let's enter play mode and feel it out, okay? That cool? Already looks 10 times better. I think the sand is a little dark, so we're gonna bump that up just a little bit. And you can do. This is why I love using PSDs, because I can do it in real time, right? So far, so good. I think that I want a nice kiss of saturation with the grass. So don't feel like you have to lock yourself in to your color scheme. If it's not working, it's not working, okay? I'm going to do this. There we go. Crank up that saturation even more. There we go. Pretty cool. I'm going to crank up the brightness and contrast of the rocks. I want them to stand out. And I'm going to make those not 55 by 54. What in the world? 5 by 5. There we go. Awesome. Thomas, you're not using normal maps. Nope. We're not going to. Remember, we're solo. I'm not saying you can't use normal maps. We're solo. So we're not going to worry. If you say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to worry about 2 other channels in all of my textures. I'm not going to worry about those for my entire project. Guess what? You've just reduced your workload by like 25%. I'm serious. Especially if you're going to make all these textures look stylized. All right, so far so good. It's a little dark over here. And so what we're going to do, and by the way, I'm going to go to my FPS controller, and I'm actually going to remove, there's a light source on my FPS controller that I don't like. So I'm going to remove that. Where are you? Here it is. Subtle constant light. I'm going to remove that. It's causing things to look kind of weird in exterior levels. So we're going to keep this the way it is. There we go. Nice and clean. Oh, very consistent, crisp. Now it's very dark over here. Why? Well, we want to make sure we crank up the skybox light. But you'll notice that I think it's because our directional light is just so angled. So let's figure out what's going on here. If I can turn off my shadows, we still have an issue here. What is that? What is going on there? What is that? I actually couldn't tell you. Oh, obviously it's the directional light. 0, 0, 0. Actually, let's reset the value here and figure out what's going on. We want to make sure we see There we go. Okay, so there's a shine going on here, and I don't know why that is. So this is good. I'm glad we, there's something going on with the specular information of the stone textures. I'm going to keep my directional light like this for now, and we're going to see what it looks like with shadows coming from stuff like this, right? So this here, you'll notice that these shadows are on, but we're not seeing any shadows. So we need to figure that out. But let's figure out why there's a shine here. That's killing me. That is so weird. Smoothness is controlled by diffuse alpha channel. What's the alpha channel here, baby? Oh, let's try this. Nope. That's wild to me. That's crazy. Why is it doing it with that one? It's like almost like a glitch with Unity. Let's go to our texture itself, and we're going to say none. There we go. Okay. Whew, we fixed it. All right. So there's no longer a shine here. Okay, but we're not getting any shadows from our directional light. So we're going to figure out what's going on there. Okay, we'll get the water to match as well in just a sec. But I want to figure out where our shadows are. Okay. I'm going to specifically go to this here, this dock here. And until I see shadows, we're not going to quit. So what's going on here with this directional light? For some reason, this directional light is not casting shadows properly. And we're going to figure out why. There we go. Okay. So let's crank up the shadow intensity. And we're going to do a long shadow. And you got to do this. You got to play with the light. And remember what I said about being a director or acting like you're a set designer or a director? What you want to do is you want to go, okay, if I was the director of this scene, what time of day would I want to film this at? And it's so weird because developers, sometimes they don't like to think about it like that. They want to think, no, it needs to look good all the time. It needs to look great at any lighting because I want to do a day-night cycle or something like that. It's like, no, stay small, think like a director, and find the perfect setup. It's okay to do that. Well, I would rather the shadows be cast sort of along this as opposed to this way, because if it's this way, you're going to get half of this isn't visible, right? If I do that, it kind of kills the light on this side. So I'm going to think, okay, well, why not I do something like this, right? There we go. Nice long shadows being cast by various elements. Very good. Let's warm up the light just a tad. A little bit more orange. There we go. Yay. Okay, awesome. So we have a nice warm light. Evening shadows are being cast pretty nice here. There we go. Nice, nice, nice. Okay, you guys want to fix the color of the water? Let's go ahead and fix the color of the water. Well, let's think, okay, what kind of coloring do we want the water to have? Kind of want to just match. Remember, we're making an indie game here. You know how we want to make an indie game? Let's just use this green. But let's see here. What kind of, could we do maybe a variation of it? Like a subtle bluish green. That'll look good. Something like that. So let's try and match that here. Right now it's a little too saturated. So I'm going to take this water here. And we're going to change the shallow color to be kind of a grayish green. There we go. And then the deep color, like a gray. Maybe even a yellow. Muddy. There we go. Okay. We're going to pixelate this in a sec. We're going to try to at least. We're going to reduce the smoothness of it. Because honestly, remember guys, we're making an indie game. And so I don't really want any specular information. And that's okay. Instead, I kind of want to make it look stylized here. So we're going to make everything slowly look more and more stylized. Sometimes you'll make a decision like that and it'll kind of scare you because you're thinking, wow, do I really want to make this look flat with no normal maps and no shine? Just sort of trust your gut. Say, I don't want to deal with shine. So I'm going to get rid of it. Okay, so far so good. You know what's really killing the shot? The rocks. Okay, so we're going to go to the rocks. Same thought process here. Same thought process. I'm going to open up the PSD and I'm going to think, okay, well, what's the color of the rocks? This. Same thing. We're trusting our gut. I'm sorry, no, we're not trusting our gut. We're trusting our color palette. I'm going to have to colorize this because there is no color information. Good. Crank it down. Decrease the saturation. There we go. Matchy, matchy. Save it. There we go. Turn off the smoothness. See what I said? It's slowly starting to work because we're following rules. Okay. You'll notice it's not very textured. You'll notice that it doesn't match this. Okay. So when in doubt, this is a trick that I learned. I think I learned it 2 weeks ago, honestly. When in doubt, just take a texture from your other textures and just slap it onto other assets. This is why I use PSDs. I'm going to use overlay, reduce the saturation here, and I'm going to just flip it so that it's a nice clean tiling. There we go. Merge those together. Honestly, we could just scale them up like this. And then I'm going to do another one here. And it won't be perfect, but remember, we're going to pixelate everything or add some kind of filter. I don't really know what the filter is going to be. We're going to add some kind of filter to every texture so everything is matchy-matchy. But for now, this is going to work for us. Look, watch this. Watch. I freaking told you. It looks like it works. It matches. And it's totally different assets. Ah, love it. I think we could probably go a little bit darker with the stones. It looks like it's slowly like handcrafted by a single developer, right? And it almost has like a really kind of retro early 2000s vibe, which is what I love. Now the water looks like it doesn't work, right? So let's see if we can figure out what we can do with the water. So you guys will notice that we're slowly it's almost like we're just chiseling away at this look. Okay. Now we have this main normal here. We may have to use smoothness. Although, let's see here. We may have to use smoothness. Because otherwise we're just not going to get texture. So I may be going back on what I said. Ooh, we have a reflection texture. Let's throw that in there and see if that helps. There is no reflection there. Use reflection. There we go. Oh, I like that. That's kind of cool. And then turn off the smoothness. That's really interesting. Yeah, we can do something like that. No displacement. And then we can turn down the reflection. So it's very subtle. And all I'm going to do for the reflection is I'm just going to use a very strategic approach here. I wonder if that doesn't really look good, though. And I know it's the wrong color. Just hang tight. I wonder if what you could do is use a specific coloring to make it work. Sorry, I'm just thinking here. I'm going to duplicate this. File, save as. We're going to call this reflection color. And I'm going to make this a PSD. And I'm going to make this look brown. Save that, and then I'm going to bring it in. Who knows? I've never used this asset in my life, so it could look good. It might look bad. Let's try that. Trying to go with a stylized look here. Turn off the smoothness. I don't hate it, and we're just going to stick with it, honestly. Very subtle here. And then we're going to make this look kind of brownish. Hang on. Give me a sec here, guys. I'm going to figure this out. I think that's fine for now. We're going to revisit it. We're going to revisit it. This can be a little bit darker. There we go. Whoa, look at all these cool values. And this was a free asset, right? A very free, very wonderful, and free asset. So we're going to keep that the way it is. Moving on. This is going to really change things, okay? All of this stuff here, these are all billboards of just textures that I found on Google. Actually, no, these were found on Vecteezy. And what I'm going to do is just use alpha clipping. You cannot... Let's see here. I don't think you can render both faces with alpha clipping. Yeah, I found that to be true, and I don't know why. What is it? After like 10 years, I still don't know this. We're going to use transparent. For some reason, alpha clipping just doesn't work for me lately, and I don't know why. I have no idea why. Let's go to our grass billboard here and take a look and see what the alpha transparency is set to. Input texture alpha, good. Alpha is transparency, remove matte, apply. Okay, so that should do it, and for some reason it's not, so let's figure out what's going on here. Turn off alpha clipping. It should do it, and it's not. Isn't that strange, guys? I wonder if it's set to the wrong import values. Yeah, it is. No, it's not. What in the world? We're going to figure this out. We're going to set it just to front for now. For some reason, this is not showing up. It's so weird. Look. I've been having this issue with the project for so long, and I cannot figure it out. Isn't that weird? It's so wild to me. I'm going to reset it here, and we're going to go grab that grass. Grass billboard. Look, for some reason, it won't import the transparent data. Isn't that weird? No, we're not going to use the tree shader. Uncheck PSD matte? Is that what it is? Really? No. I mean, it might be. Transparent. Nope. Isn't that crazy? I've been having this issue and I cannot figure it out. Even though it's transparent here. Welcome to Unity, baby. We were on a roll, guys. Let's try this one up here. And see if it's an issue with the... Look, alpha clipping doesn't work anymore. That's wild to me. So frustrating. We were on a roll. We were on a roll. Look, it's showing up as white here, even though it's transparent in Photoshop. Very frustrating. I'm going to reset the import values. What in the world? No, it's not Sprite 2D. I mean, we can if you want to try it, but that's not what it is. We have a import issue here. I'm doing the cutoff and it's not working. I had this issue earlier today and it was so frustrating. I mean, you can. I like to use alpha cutoff and I mean you could obviously use Sprite, but I don't know if Sprite will work either because for some reason it's not uh, importing the transparent data. See, if for some reason it won't figure out that it's transparent. Isn't that crazy? No, it's not preserve specular because it won't even render as a sprite here properly. Very, very frustrating. Y'all, we're going to figure this out. Okay, let's go. Only POT textures can be compressed if mipmaps are enabled. Turn off mipmaps for now. Maybe it's the mode. We're in grayscale. I think we need to be in RGB. Well, for the grass, we need to save that. And then also let's go to, I think this is what it is. I think it has to do with the, like let's open up this. So this is the tree, right? I'm going to go to mode. It's in grayscale. I'm going to go to RGB, rasterize, save. And I'm going to go over to the other one here, which is this one here. So this is now RGB. Let's see if this fixes it. Okay, there we go. All right, it's showing up as transparent. Thank God. Okay, so the issue was it was in RGB, or is in grayscale. There we go. Trust your daddy. Okay, and then we also want to remove, and I'll teach you guys what just happened. This is actually very important. You guys are going to come into this issue a lot. Because I came into it this morning and I could not figure out what was going on. Okay, so we have all these assets here. And what I'm going to do is it's totally fine to set them as just lit and then turn on clipping, alpha clipping, that's fine. But the problem is, if we open this up, you'll notice that it's not in RGB. It needs to be in RGB because it doesn't have the alpha information. It's grayscale. Save that. Now it should import properly. Alpha's transparency, input texture alpha, apply. There it is. Yay! We solved our problems. Now, we haven't done any composition here yet. We haven't done any composition. Composition is stuff like this. Taking your trees, your billboards, and just creating a really cool shot. And you want to think like a director. Don't think like a game dev. Think like a director. A director would be standing here and they'd say, you know what? I really want like a tree line right here. You know? That's what a director is going to say. I want a tree line. But what if they go over there? They're not. We're going to lock them in. And that's okay. You know? At least for a game like this. Okay, when in doubt, flip it. When in doubt, flip it. Scale it. There we go. So we're slowly getting this sort of foggy tree line. See that? We're just going to move them up and down like this. Yeah, so the assumption would be we're going to build like stones here where the player cannot, they're not going to be able to get up over this edge. That's the only way game dev works, by the way. Or like, especially if you're going to make like a beautiful linear game, you've got to create limitations for the player. So that's a pretty cool looking group. What we could do, because we're in a Photoshop document, is we can blur it really quickly here, just to create a subtle simplification, right? And because we're using alpha clipping, that didn't work. So you want to make sure you go to transparent. It's just a little bit blurry now, much more subtle. Okay, we have this asset. This was free. This asset of a tree. Well, this is going to be a low poly sort of retro looking game. So I don't want all these high quality LODs. I just want one. So I'm going to delete this one. I'm just going to have this one. I'm going to remove the LOD group. Because it's a small scene, we don't need a bunch of LODs. And I'm just going to make sure I use this lower quality one. And I'm going to go to URP, lit. And we should have a texture, but we're not going to really need it, honestly. So I'm just going to drop it down and turn off the specular. There we go. So now we have this texture, or this tree has no texture, but now it's looking like it matches the scene. Okay. Honestly, I think it needs some texture because I'm looking at it here. This one here, by the way, we need to kill the LODs as well. This one here, yep, there we go. Keep that. Turn off the LOD group. And now it's just going to be a low LOD. But for some reason, we don't have textures here. Let's figure out where the textures are. Okay, there's no texture on this tree. The tree did not come with texture. Oh no, what are we going to do? Well, it's totally fine. Believe me. I'm going to take a gander here that if I put this rock texture on this tree or a grass texture on this tree, that it will work. Or what we could do is we could say, you know what? I'm going to duplicate this grass texture and I'm going to call it bark. Now you're probably going to think, oh, the unwrap isn't going to be very good though. Well, it's far away. That's okay. And we're making an indie game here. Who cares? Okay, so there's our bark. We can adjust it later if we want. And I could grab this. There's our bark. Good. I'm going to grab it and put it here. There it is. I'm just going to set it to white. Not terrible, honestly. I could go 0.5, 0.5. And it's just those subtleties that make it work. Not bad. Okay. These are driving me crazy. So what we're going to do is take the material. We're going to make sure it's set to URP lit, which it is. Turn off the smoothness. Remove the metallic map. Remember, we're making an indie game here. We're making an indie game. We don't need... You can have normal maps. That's fine. But I'm going to use a very simple... no normal map, no specular, no metallic, no nothing. Very flat look for this game. Okay? Now you might be thinking, Thomas, getting rid of that normal map really killed the vibe. Well, what you do is you open up the normal map, you grab it, and then you put it here, reduce the saturation, set it to overlay. Let's crank up that contrast. And we're going to get a really textured look. I'm going to save this as a PSD. I'm going to do underscore PSD just to remind myself that it is a PSD. So I can find it. There it is. Put it here. No normal maps, baby. And now we're going to get this sort of flat, classic look. I'm going to turn off the height map. We don't need that. We don't want any unique, we don't want any other channels in the shader except for just a simple texture here. Now you notice the coloring's kind of off. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and find the color. It's this right here. There's our pipe. Let's make sure we match the color. And hey, we could add some texture here. We could add like a crunchy texture to it if we wanted to. So let's do that. Because it feels a little bit too smooth for this scene. Okay, I'm going to crank up the contrast and the brightness as well. There we go. Save it. There we go. Awesome, Thomas. It looks amazing. And this right here is a little bit too small. So I'm going to set it to 8 by 8. Good. Now you notice these aren't looping properly. We're going to or tiling properly. We're going to make those tile. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so far so good. That's still a little too bright. Let's do a little bit, actually go darker. Maybe that's what I needed. I just think I need more contrast or something. Something is wrong with those pipes. Maybe it's the saturation as well. This is the benefit of using Photoshop, because you could quickly iterate, which is what I want you guys to do as solo developers. Okay, that's fine for now. We're going to figure out what's going on in a second here. The sand texture is I think honestly all of these are looping or tiling a little bit too frequently. So the sand one, for example, I'm going to set that to 8 by 8. There we go. Maybe even 10 by 10. Yeah, that's much better. This maybe 10 by 10 here as well. And then this one 10 by 10 as well. And then the grass 10 by 10. Why not? Crunchy, crunchy. And we haven't done, any composition or post-processing or, unique lighting, nothing. We're all just getting the colors to work. Pretty cool, huh, guys? Okay, we're going to add a bunch of filters to the textures to make them look crispy and crunchy. I'll add colliders to those. Good. We're going to add ambience. It's going to look amazing. Okay? I'm actually really excited about this. Something clicked in my brain this week. I don't know what it was. I was watching the Half-Life documentary, the Half-Life 2 documentary, and all of a sudden it clicked. Half-Life lighting and Half-Life styling. I don't know why. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. All right, dead tree. I'm going to make a dead tree group prefab, and I'm going to just put these all throughout. So something happens when you surround a scene with boundaries, even if it's just visual. It makes the player feel, well, like they're not in a desert. So let's go ahead and do that really quick here. Okay, let's grab dead tree, move it up here. We have our dead tree group now, and I'm going to actually scale that up taller and apply it. And you might be thinking, well, Thomas, we're just copying Half-Life. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I found that's really effective for me as a developer is just trying to replicate a game, figuring out, okay, what did they do? How are they making this work? And what you do is you just recreate a scene, and all of a sudden in your own game. This is going to look really interesting. Hang tight, hang tight. It's going to make it feel very deep. When in reality, this is the shot, This is the scene. Nothing fancy. But in fact, it is fancy. Being able to master color and fog and lighting and consistency with your assets is no small feat. These I'm going to sort of scrunch a little bit, make it a little bit smaller. So is Thomas right again? Yes, he is. Thomas is right. It does look amazing. I love my life. I love my life. Look at this, guys. It's starting to come together. It's starting to come together. All right, so remember, we're acting like a director here. We're saying, okay, I'm a director. I can be very precise about every little placement of an object. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I've been feeling pressure for 3 years making 3D games to make it realistic. It should just look good by default. No, detail. That's the way it works. And you don't need to feel guilty that your game requires that. Okay? Sometimes these trees are a little bit the little pieces here are driving me crazy. So this is why, again, you want to use Photoshop. Are we using alpha clipping? Turn that crap off and remove. There we go. Oh, so much better, Tommy. Dad, it looks amazing. This 2D tool, I use it a lot lately. All right, unifying asset course. That's a great idea. How about I just give you all this for free, guys? Big fat webinar here, workshop. And something that drove me crazy recently is they never mind. I'm not going to talk about it. But yeah, I just want to be more practical and show you guys how to do things. As opposed to just talk. I just want to show you, okay, this is how you do it, and just do it live. I think that's probably the best way to do things these days, because there's a lot of BS out there. This sort of drives me crazy here. It feels really empty back here. So what I'm going to do is actually go into my terrain tool and raise the terrain, just so it doesn't feel like it's just ending. Maybe we can create some mountains, you know. There we go. Something like that might look really cool. Yes. Okay. Thank God. Same over here. It's if you don't. This is a big problem with a lot of indie games that are doing exteriors. They don't feel nestled. They feel flat and they feel like a desert. And that's because they're not prioritizing the horizon. Now you notice that my terrain has a really crunchy, pixelated, or like hard-edged look. It's not smooth. The reason why is because if we go to the terrain here and go to pixel error, if I set it to smooth, it looks really dumb. So what I do is I crank up the pixel error, and now it has that retro look. See that? I'm going to raise up this as well. You raise me up. There we go. I need to smooth that. That looks like crap. What in the world? Let's smooth that. There we go. All right, and we're just going to sort of pretend right now that the player's not going to go down there. And that's okay. You know, this would take like another hour to clean up this side. And that's totally fine. But look, something you can do, by the way, guys, don't feel like you need to go find a mountain asset. Don't do that. Just use what you've got. We're solo here. Watch this. I'm going to put this big old fat asset right over here. Like that. So now, this is what it looks like. See? And we're using a little bit of composition knowledge here to create some kind of looking like a Disney-esque. By Disney, I just mean it looks like a Lion King. I'm just going to create some cool rocks over here, like a rock formation. There we go. Sweet. And then we're going to do one over here as well. And we definitely want a tree line, but I'm going to show you guys a trick that you can do with the horizon to make it look like there's trees in the horizon. Don't underestimate the value of adding just a gentle kiss of silhouettes to the horizon. By the way, let me show you something. Y'all ever seen, have you guys ever seen Skinny Marinky Dink? No. Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events. It's 2004, and I'm going to show you the set. You ever seen the set before? They filmed the entire thing. In one soundstage. The whole thing is a giant soundstage. Depth can be achieved with just a really rock solid skybox. So we're going to do the same thing here.